written loads of words on cards that will be random starting points for discussion on something. And I'd also say the best bit of advice I ever got was someone once told me, take as much advice as you can and ignore 2/3 of it. And so I always think that's good. So you could choose to ignore that piece of advice there, or not. And I just sort of think these are my own personal viewpoints, and they're not necessarily the law, you know. It's just, this is what I think. So absorb what you want of what I think, or ignore it all. Who cares, you know? Hopefully you take something from it.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to choose a card randomly, and to prove this is not fixed, I'll hold it up to before I do it, and then let's see where the conversation leads us. So the card I have chosen is Denial.
Ooh, interesting one. Okay. Should we throw that one on the floor? Yeah. So I think being a TV composer, one of the big things that people ask you is, you know, do you do any music for yourself? And I always find that an interesting question, because it's always been this idea that anyone who writes music for TV or any form of moving image or a sort of commercial operation is basically doing it for money and hates it, and really wishes they were writing pop songs. Or in the case of TV composers, they all seem to want to write musicals, which I have no desire in doing. Now, is this in denial in the sense that I actually really think I really enjoy doing TV music? And I've actually tried to approach it in a way that I take each job on as if I was starting a new band, or, you know, trying to do something new. And I find a very good way of trying to keep myself fresh and excited about things is to continually put myself in sort of new situations where I can write differently. I think when you approach a project, you have to work out what you're trying to get out of it, I guess. Sometimes I do things because I want to learn something or try things out, which is often a very good motive for me for taking on a job. So I'm just trying to think of a good example. I've just done this thing on George Best, which for the BBC, which has apparently caused a bit of a furore over here, because it's about George's alcoholic mother and doesn't paint it too prettily. But I really wanted to try some like kind of post-rocky type music, because I hadn't really done anything like that for ages. So I sort of said, that's my motive for doing this job, is, you know, trying something which was like e-bowed guitars, drums and violas, and just making it into a weird mishmash, because I wanted to do that. I was getting bored of doing everything else. So that for me was a good motive for doing that job. I definitely think there's something, you know, there's something to be said about doing one thing and doing it really well, because you learn all the minutiae, I can't even say that properly, of what makes a great sound for the thing you're in. And I'm a bit like one of those menus in a pub that has about 70 different dishes on. You know, it's like, are they actually going to be all that good? Have they got that many dishes? And I guess it's that thing where I think there's two ways. I definitely think more people should try and do every type of music they can. I think we're really ingrained just the way the music industry operates to saying, this is what you do. You know, if you're in an indie band, whatever, you can only make this kind of music. And I think that has partly been one of the reasons why, I don't want to say that's the reason why the music industry's gone a bit down, but I think everyone who makes music is generally an artist, and at the moment they write music to their own limitations, in the sense that I write to the limitations of TV or the people I'm working with, but they're writing to the limitations of a single, or like getting it through airplay, and I think if everyone hopefully starts freeing up and just experimenting in any kind of area, I think it will be great for music and for the people making it.
Employment. Very important for any musician.
Yeah, the reason I get a lot of work is, I'd like to think it's because I write really great music that everyone thinks is brilliant and changes, you know, the world, but it doesn't. I get lots of work because people are lazy and they want to work with me because they know I'll get it done in the time that it's done, and I'll get it done for the price they agreed to do it for, and I won't be too much of a pain in the ass. And it's good to sometimes draw a line in the sand. and it might send you off into a weird wilderness for a bit. But if you actually really care about what you do, you'll always come back. Okay.
So the last card is charm.
Someone's coming for you. I want you to do something. Here you go. Here's what you want. You've got to be able to make them feel comfortable, and not that you're really difficult to work with. But at the same time, I'm not, like, I got this friend of mine who does lots of TV music. He's a real schmoozer. He takes everyone out to lunch, all this shit. I don't bother with that. I kind of think I'm, like, in my head, I basically think, hey, I'm a bit too good for that. They should be taking me out for lunch. But let's wait till see what happens when the work dries up. So I think we're going to run the first clip. This one, let's run it for like 2 minutes. And this is it without any music. Because I thought it might be interesting for you to see just a scene with no music and then with music.
We may have to commit the reserves.
Sir, General de Gommier hasn't
You're
ordered...
floundering. For God's sake. This is it, mate. Get my horse.
Sir, you could be court-martialed for this. What about your family, please, sir?
And so what I did with this was, I often find it's very good if you're working on certain types of shows, is to come up with a big thematic idea early on. You know, I sat down at a piano and wrote a tune that I got quite a full theme that I then worked back through the show, and this is the big battle at the end. So it was the time to kind of bring all these elements from earlier on into this final scene. And I often find that if you work backwards with a big, you know, certain composers do this, others don't. I think it's a really good way to work, where you write before the film, you know, you've even seen the film, you've read the script or something, is to just come up with a really strong thing that maybe encapsulate the film, a piece of music. And then you can pull bits out of that for all the rest of the music, and you're not constantly thinking, how am I going to get around this corner? And you keep a sort of sense of cohesion through the score. And there's a composer called John Bryan. I don't know if you know him. He did things like The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I heard an interview with him recently, and he was saying he always writes every piece of music so it can be played on the piano or guitar. And he will demo it up purely on those instruments, because if it doesn't work on those emotionally for a scene, then it's, you know, the scene's not going to work.
But General de Gommier hasn't
They're
ordered...
floundering. For God's sake. This is it, mate. Get my horse.
Sir, you could be court-martialed for this. What about your family, please, sir?
There is this horrible London centricity in the media still, and I live in London, so I'm like, great, but I don't think it's good for the you know, for the creative industry of the whole country. And the thing is, you probably, if you're not in London, you have to work harder to make a you know, if you want to make a career, sort of, I'd imagine you have to work harder, because you have to make really good quality stuff, because people are not going to hire you just because it's convenient. And as a result, you have a skill or a knowledge of a sound that no one else has, and it's about capitalizing on your strengths, I guess, is the way to kind of deal with that. If that made any sense, I don't know.